Brewer, who is a volunteer for SSAFA, which is the Soldiers, Sailors, Airmen and Families Association, who were formed in 1885. And I'm sure now Janet is going to tell you all about it.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Not many.
I didn't know I'm holding it. Have I got to hold it up that much? Right. So, I'll just jump a little bit. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me today, and thank you for providing such a wonderful lunch. That sounds absolutely gorgeous. The staff here are to be recommended. Just to tell you a little bit about myself first, I've worked for SSAFA Forces Health for just short of 20 years, and I joined as a result of pure fluke. There was an advert in the British Telecom in-house magazine just as I was taking redundancy. So I decided, you know, it was the sort of thing that I had been doing as a personnel officer. So I joined, and unexpectedly I actually joined as the area manager. Now I'm going to tell you about the charity, both a little bit about its history, because I think how it was formed is quite interesting, and what we do today. I'll just quickly check. For myself, I work part-time as a volunteer for SSAFA, and I also work part-time. I make and bake cakes from home as a business, and I'm also an ongoing student of Egyptology. So I have my qualifications. In 1885, General Gordon and the garrison at Khartoum were massacred. I'm sure every one of you knows Gordon and Khartoum. SSAFA was formed as a direct result of that action. The British government was so horrified, they decided to send an expeditionary force to both recover the bodies and to carry on the work they were doing. I'll put it that way. The only problem with them doing it so suddenly and so quickly was that it was the first time in the history of the British Army that the wives and families were not going to go with the forces. Up until that time, there had been the baggage train. Wives and families carried on just behind the advanced forces. The soldiers were paid the money in their hand, and of course this time round the hand was going to be in Egypt and the Sudan, whereas the wives and families were going to be left behind. And of course 1885 was long before any social services. I know there were the poor laws, but we're talking about a huge number of people around the garrisons. So a gentleman, Major James Gildea of the Royal Warwickshire Regiment, put a letter into the Times, and the letter was printed on the 13th of February. By the 14th of February 1885, he had a coterie of ladies that were going to act as the committee for this newly formed charity. As you can see, it's a really lovely gentleman, doesn't he? Now, the chairman, president, became so I've got to be able to see what I'm talking about. So excuse me. The president, our very first president, was Princess Alexandra, who is the great-great-grandmother of our current Queen. Now the committee were all ladies, and I mean lady this, lady that, lady the other. But the good work that they started, and calling themselves the Soldiers and Sailors Association, has continued till today. SSAFA itself has always been a reactionary charity. We don't go out there and put forward our views of what should and shouldn't happen with the armed forces of the Crown. We just react to the events afterwards. So the first occasion was the Boer War, and as a result of the Boer War, SSAFA invented district nurses. Up until that time, district nurses didn't exist. SSAFA paid for district nurses to go into the garrison towns to look after the wives and families of the servicemen abroad. The appeal, which you can see, £1.2 million. You're all businessmen here. How much is that money in today's... It's an incredible amount of money, isn't it? It was a lot for the widows and children. During World War I, again, we reacted. The men either joined up or were called up and disappeared very, very rapidly. There was a separation allowance paid to the wives at home, but it very often didn't arrive in time. And SSAFA announced the appeal, and again, £1.3 million in the first 5 months.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
So, I don't know. Sorry, I had a problem with my arm, you see. Right, that's better. I can shout. In between the wars, things quietened down a lot. But in 1926, the Royal Air Force were formed, and SSAFA changed its name to reflect that. So we went from being the Soldiers and Sailors Association to the Soldiers, Sailors, Airmen's Association. We added the families as well, and that is where we are today. This is one of the health visitors that visited families between the wars. Sorry, World War II. Clothing, and one of our most important things were, as a result of a lot of children being orphaned, we opened up 4 children's homes. As the war ended and National Health Service started in 1948, those 4 homes were passed over to the National Health Service because they could manage them better than we could. We saw the need, we got the orphanages, and then passed them on to somebody that could actually work better than we. The other thing, especially around the London area and in the larger conurbations, houses were bombed and the families moved away, or ultimately were deceased. SSAFA had a lot of volunteers working, redirecting mail. These people, from what I've been told by somebody that knew one, were like the investigators. They would take an address and then work out exactly where that family was now. What do you think was good? I don't know if you saw Foyle's War, television programme, in the very, very last episode. His assistant, I can't think what her name was, she actually joined SSAFA and just acted as one of the officers. General Montgomery, the whole thing was the serviceman knew that his family would be cared for if not by the forces, at least by a charity. Apparently, General Montgomery was very fond of SSAFA, I've been told. National service, I would guess that quite a number of gentlemen here did national service.
Sure.
Yeah. It was, I know towards the end they were a bit iffy as to whether some people joined. They missed numbers. But from 1946 to about 1960,
Thank you.
it was quite a normal thing for people to be called out. SSAFA has had staff, paid staff like the district nurses, as you can see one here, modern one. Wherever there is a garrison or a British forces establishment. So at the current time, we have got district nurses, midwives, community psychiatric nurses, and anything else to do with the medical side of things in every country that the forces are serving at the moment. So the one I always get confused about is Belize, because I can never quite remember where Belize is.
North America, Central America.
Is it South America?
Yeah.
Which is the one that's
South
near
America.
Thailand? There's another one, is there?
Not near China, then. Not near China.
Not been there, so I don't know. As I want to make you understand, SSAFA reacts to things as they happen. Service families have been breaking up. In the past, I know families had a lot of difficulties, but today, if people have difficulties, they have got more of a chance that they will walk. Now, a serviceman, a soldier, he can be in a married quarter, and then he can just say, I'm going back to barracks. And he is allowed to move back into the barracks, leaving his or her, don't mean to be sexist here, because it is equally male and female now, generally speaking, it's weighted towards the masculine side, can go back to the barracks and leave the other partner and the family in the married quarter. Now, if that happens, they have to quit. A little while ago, they had 3 months in which to quit, but that has altered now, and they are now given as much time as they need. But where do they go? They can only go back to mum, and if there is no mum, then they are really stuck. And quite often, a lot of the young wives have been within the military. They don't know how to get council tax relief, housing benefit, how to get a home or anything like that if they're on their own. So we invented quite a long time ago now, over 13 years, 12 years, I can count, no, 22 years. No, I can't. Sorry.
22.
I'm not a businessman. We opened 3 houses especially for the wives and families who have got nowhere else to go. They stay at these stepping stone homes, and it is what it says. They leave the married quarter, they go into the stepping stone home where the whole gamut of everything that they need to know, from benefits to how you do things, is organised, and they then move on to their life. I apologise for that. I'm not going to touch it because, as you know, I'm having a bit of trouble with the plug kit for you now, so I apologise for that.
It's fine.
SSAFA Forces Help is mainly made up from volunteers like me. We work as and when we're required, and we do it for expenses. Nobody gets a single penny other than out-of-pocket expenses. We have 800 service volunteers. Now, they are people who I would describe myself as working outside the wire. I don't work within a military establishment. In fact, if you think of this area, apart from the TA Centre on the London Road, there isn't any. But we have 800 volunteers who actually work inside the wire. They're the families of current serving servicemen and women who act in exactly the same way as I do, but they do it for servicemen and women. And I mentioned our professional staff, midwives, doctors, nurses. We do all the medical care for the army in Germany, and we have a contract with the Ministry of Defence to supply that. I use the royal we because obviously I don't. What do? We help anyone who ever earned 1 day's pay in the armed forces of the Crown. Their dependents and their widows and widowers for their entire life. 2008, 2006, the Gulf War, there were a lot of servicemen and women coming back to the UK who were very seriously injured. It's still happening today from Afghanistan. Now, up until then, 2008, if the family of the serviceman wanted to visit them at Selly Oak Hospital or Headley Court, the rehabilitation centre at Headley Court, they had to book themselves into a local B&B. There was no accommodation, they had to find the funds to do it. So every weekend somebody could be coming from Scotland to Selly Oak, from Worthing to Birmingham. We raised £2 million to buy 2 properties, one near Headley Court and one near Selly Oak Hospital. I know the hospital has now moved a little bit to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, but the house we bought is still close enough. And it's fitted out entirely inside for people who have lost limbs. And the families can come and stay there for nothing at all whenever they want. Since 2008, when that first one was opened, those houses have not been empty on a weekend. And unfortunately, the way things seem to be going, they're probably going to carry on like that. We are opening another one in the southwest. Now you have to be quiet. Where's the mouse gone? It's got sound, but it's only out of here, so you may not hear it.
Put the microphone next to it.
Oh. Start counting how many different types of soldier you see and what wars they're fighting in. Words to a military hymn. The area that we look after here from our office in Romford is Newham, Barking and Dagenham, Waltham Forest, Redbridge and Havering. I haven't got the figures for last year fully at the moment, but in 2011, so 12 months ago, our volunteers helped 311 people and raised £119,000 for their needs. Now, the sorts of things that SSAFA helps people get are carpet, chairs, gas cooker, stair lift, knives and forks, bed linen, clothing, you name it. If somebody needs it, we will do our best to raise the money for that. And the way we do it is that we go to appropriate grant-making charities. So if somebody was, say, and around this area, a lot of people would have worked for Fords. So say there'd been national service in tanks in the Royal Artillery and then gone to work for Fords, we would visit them, go through what the problem is, how we can help, and then when we know what we need to do, we will go to the Royal Artillery Benevolent Fund and Ben, which is the benevolent fund for the motor industry, and ask for a grant on behalf of the client. We are rarely turned down. Our volunteers are completely confidential, but they will tell it as it is. So if somebody is spending money willy-nilly and they are in debt, we would do our best to help them see sense. If somebody is in debt, we'd recommend and put them in the way of the Royal British Legion's debt advisors. They have got some wonderful people, British Legion debt advisors. They really do know their stuff. They're paid employees, we're volunteers, and we have to be so careful as to what we can and can't do. I wanted to say about changing needs. That's what SSAFA does. As a result of the many deaths in the Afghanistan conflict, we have got a new couple of groups, not here, we haven't escaped completely in this area, but we have bereavement groups that have been started for the siblings of those lost, and for their wives, and for their parents. We raise the money, because I think I said to you about expenses. All our volunteers claim expenses. Some of us give the expenses that we claim back to the charity, because then you can gift aid. But we do need money. We have to raise money to pay for our telephone in the office, to buy, you know, the printer, the print ink and things like that. And our expenses are, I don't know if you've got, the year that we raised £119,000, so 12 months ago, it cost us £6,000 to run our entire efforts. And we do this, we raise money for that purpose by holding an event twice a year at the Queen's Theatre in Hornchurch. We have one in a couple of weeks' time. We hold military band concerts. We get the military bands for free. They don't charge us to come and play. I'm sure that's 2 people. I think it's 2. They don't charge us, but we have to pay the expenses, and of course we have to pay to hold it in the Queen's Theatre. And they are extraordinarily expensive. Oh. We've got the Royal Artillery Band, and it is in fact our 20th concert, and this time we have got a military wives choir joining us. If you've got a leaflet and you are interested and you think you want to go, you do need to apply and get your tickets quickly. Not just because I want people to come, but because I know there aren't many tickets left. And I've also been told that there are some golfers here. Golfers? That's all right. The other way that we raise money, we did it last year and we're going to do it again in this year, is to hold one of these charity golf events. It's on the 17th of May, and again, it's just giving you some details about it. And what we do is, the money that we raise is for our volunteers' expenses, but we also use about £4,000 a year to top up grants to other people. So we're fundraising, and we're always fundraising, doing other things, to raise money to help serving and ex-service military people. All I can say is I've worked for SSAFA Forces Help for 20 years come April. I think it is a very, very worthwhile charity. And I know from the lovely letters we get from somebody just recently, we got them a stair lift. And after it was installed, he wouldn't go on the stair lift until the lady caseworker that had got the money for him was the first person to sit on it. He refused, so she had to go down there at that tea time and get on the stair lift.
That's to make sure it works
Thank
properly.
you very much for listening to me. I've got a few leaflets. May I ask you to act as my publicity, because we will not spend money publicising ourselves. This is as much as we will do. We use the money to help people, not to put it in the papers. If you know anybody who one day's pay in the armed forces of the Crown, reservists, national servicemen, regulars, Second World War veterans, anybody who's in need, and their widows, their widowers, or their dependents, please push them our way, and we will do our very best to help them. And thank you very much.
Hello, sir. Any questions?
I mean, the golf game, it's got £180 per team. How many people in the team? Four. Yeah, I don't know.
See, I do now.
I thought,
I did it.
I personally might have 4 balls, I don't know.
Well, I did wonder when I first was told that it was 4 balls.
Jim?
Only one question. Do you have any recipients in this local area?
Do I have a...
Any recipients of your charitable benefit in this local area?
Oh, what, Hall Church?
Yes.
No, we're up.
Upminster, yeah.
Havering, generally. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I admit in the Havering area, quite a lot of our cases are Raynham, but we...
That's still Havering.
Oh, Havering, oh yeah. I didn't have it, but last year we helped, what is it, it was about 119. It was about a quarter of that was Havering.
Really?
Possibly more than you would think. More for Havering than Redbridge.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Sorry.
Yes, I just wondered, your charity is 127 years old.
Yes.
There are 2 relatively young charities, Combat Stress and Help for Heroes, which are getting all the publicity. And I just wondered to what extent that your services might overlap with theirs.
Okay.
And secondly, are you losing money in your charity because it's going to those?
Right, okay. First of all, Combat Stress. Combat Stress is a specific military charity for people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not like SSAFA at all. We refer clients to Combat Stress when they present with a mental illness. That is what they do. They don't give grants. They are specifically psychiatric. Help for Heroes is, as you say, a new charity, and it is wonderful because until Help for Heroes appeared on the scene and people started thinking about servicemen, we were struggling to make anyone understand anything about us at all. Now, Help for Heroes don't tend to give individual grants. They do huge projects. So they paid us, they gave SSAFA a grant towards our 2 houses that we have, that I was telling you, the homes. They only help people that have been injured since the 11th of September 2001? 9/11 was 2001? Yeah?
2001.
Yeah, it was 2001. Their charity was set up specifically to help injured people after that date. So if somebody goes to them for help, I don't mean they won't get it, they will be referred to somebody like SSAFA, and then if we can go to them for a grant on their behalf. They raise huge amounts of money and they use it in huge, big projects. We raise a little bit of money and we use it for somebody's new gas stove and their new washing machine. They haven't had any impact on us at all. They've not had any impact on us here locally. Whether it has done nationally, I don't know, but I don't think it has. I think we've been in that lucky position whereby the money that we've always had, we've still got, and people have actually put their hands in their pockets even deeper and given it there. We would have been stuck for a few things if they hadn't given us grants for our big projects. But no, I'm all in favour. Combat stress is wonderful, absolutely brilliant. Help for Heroes is very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one more question, please? It's nice to know, and I don't know if you all realise it, but not only do they help the forces, but they help the families. And 9 times out of 10, our older people who fought in the First and Second World War, in the Second World War now, are diminishing very fast and leaving families. Can they still apply to the SSAFA for their help?
Especially widows and widowers. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
And that's what we're always trying to get across. It's not just the serviceman or woman, but it is their dependents and their widows and widowers. About 1/3 of our clients are widows.
Well, thank you very much. Can I ask Ray to give a vote of thanks, please?
Yes, thank you, Janet. As an ex-national serviceman, it's good to know you're going to look after my wife when I've gone, because the way the money's going at the moment, it'll be like Labour, there'll be no money left when I go. I did take the opportunity this morning to look at your website, and I would recommend it to anybody who's interested, because there's quite a lot of information on there, and you have enlarged on that. And thank you very much indeed. And fellows, if you join me in thanking Janet. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there any other business, fellows? Yes,